Hello everyone, and welcome back to some more of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Last time, a great deal of things happened. Not only did we overturn our second summation examination, but we brought out who we think is the true culprit behind the scene, crime, whatever. Olive Green, as you see there. Anyways, we brought her out, and as we were bringing out, we got a few things during the recess period, namely the bottle of poison she used, and the offender's file for the newspaper article about the guy dying in prison, about the convict curse, essentially. With that being said, I think the very last thing we did was present this note Miss Green had, connecting her and Shamspear to the scene, saying that, connecting what she said and where Shamspear was at the Slug and Salad. So, yeah, I think that's it. I don't think we have done anything more. Let's see. That's exactly where you went. You already knew about this note. No, it was in Shamspear's room. Yeah. So she broke into Shamspear's room and stole the note. So yeah. Sorry, my memory is fading recently. Well. Anyways, I guess let's get started with the anomaly of the note. I do remember now. 'Twas a week ago, peradventure, that note was delivered unto me. On the day with writ therein, I did tarry a long hour at the Slug and Salad, yet nobody came. Thereafter, on the evening I shared the company of the Japanese fellow, I did see the note had vanished. I don't know what you mean. You think I snuck into this man's room, do you? Why would I? I can point out the villain here. And as for that torn off piece of the note, I don't know anything about it.
You now claim to have received this letter, do you, Mr. Shamspear?
So who sent it? Mr. Shamspear or Miss Green? Faith, 'tis so, my lord. And I would swear to have set it upon my table in my humble lodgings. Yet 'tis clear to me now that since I returned from the tavern that night, I have not laid eyes upon it.
Well, that being the case, young lady, it would appear your testimony was...
A lie? Is that what you think? How unfair of you to think I'm the one lying.
I beg your pardon?
I'm just a fledgling artist, as I said, and fledgling artists don't lie. That note was delivered to me at my address. Besides, we all know who the liar around here is. If that's true, Miss Green, how do you explain the facts? This part of the envelope was, without question, found in Mr. Shamspear's room. I don't see why I should explain. What? Sorry? I'm a fledgling artist. My job here is just to say what happened. That's all. It's your job to give the explanations and the proofs. You, the fledgling lawyer. Yeah? You're gonna turn this around on me? The fledgling will do his best.
Evidently, my learned friend's cross-examination is our only hope of learning the truth. Well, counsel?
I'm ready, my lord.
Very well, then. The defense will now proceed with the cross-examination of the witnesses.
Miss Green clearly did break into Mr. Shamspear's room. There can be no question of that. And that's how she acquired the note. So she sent it to him. Okay. Yes. The two facts are starting to lead me to a possible explanation for all of this. And it's not a pretty one. Alright. A week ago, note was delivered unto me.
Hold it!
Okay. And can you shed any light on the contents of the note at all? Nay, sire, 'tis as strange to me as a foreign tongue. Even with a knowledge of literature as great as mine own, verily, 'tis impenetrable. But Mr. Duncan Ross had lodgings in the same household as you. In effect, he was your neighbor, so surely you knew him, didn't you? Alack, if the choice is betwixt I knew him and I knew him not, then 'tis with foreboding that I be forced to declare we were by some small measure acquainted. Despite your claims, though, you followed the note's instructions and went to the Slug and Salad. Presumably that was nothing to do with your knowledge of literature? Marry, naught will have the better of me, sire, save for the lure of curiosity. So 'tis true, I was compelled by mine own eager heart to betake myself to the tavern. Yet, in the end, my curiosity was not satiated. Alright. I did tarry a long hour, yet nobody came. On the evening I shared, the note vanished. Wait, if you say the note vanished, why didn't you do anything? Hold it! When exactly did you notice that it had gone missing? Such idle thoughts now occupy my mind. I am busy with greater ideas.
In other words, you didn't notice.
Several days passed between your outing to the tavern and Mr. Knott's visit to your room.
Yes, it would appear that the note disappeared sometime in that interval.
Such idle thoughts now occupy my mind. I am busied with greater ideas.
And yet, during that time, Miss Green was comatose in the hospital, was she not? Clearly then, she could not have been stealing things from Mr. Shamspeare's room.
Yes, of course. It's all some sort of misunderstanding, isn't it, Mr. Prosecutor, sir?
You have so far failed to give a satisfactory explanation as to how you came by the note. I am not here to advocate for your defense, madam. I won't tolerate inconsistencies in your story. You would do well to remember that.
Oh, dearie me. What's Lord Van Zeek's getting at? Huh. I snuck into this room. Why would I? Hold it! It seems that this note was actually delivered to Mr. Shamspeare about 1 week ago. Oh, does it? But for some reason, it ended up in your possession. I can't think of any way that could have happened except for you breaking into Mr. Shamspeare's lodgings.
Objection!
But for what reason would the witness have done that? I won't deny that Mr. Green's possession of the note would appear to defy logic. However, until and unless her involvement in this case can be proven in some other way, any further pursuit of this note is meaningless.
Miss Green could only have come to be in possession of the note by stealing it from Mr. Shamspeare's room. And yet, there's no obvious reason why she would have done such a thing. What if there was some other reason she broke into his lodgings, though? Let me see, because I actually don't remember. Something I meet them at Briar Road. No? Let me see what the hint is. It's clear that Miss Green did in fact break into Mr. Shanspeare's room, isn't it? And that's where she found this letter. Yes, two or more or less foregone conclusions that lead me to one terrifying conclusion. Terrifying? Yes, I'm afraid to say that the outcome of this cross-examination may very well change how we look at this case completely. Well... Huh. I don't know. I mean... This, I know this is the statement that, we have to prove, because that's usually how this goes, but... I don't know, maybe to poison him? I mean, she had the bottle of poison. She could have just broke in, rubbed some on the lamp, and then when he blew into it, he would die shortly afterward? Whatever, I don't know. We got five, whatever, we got 5 stars. Let's waste one.
Objection!
Huh? That was it? What? Yeah? Yeah, sorry. That was it? It was. I knew that one. I knew that was the quote because that's usually how these ones go. But that was it. She broke into to rub some poison on the thing. What? What? Okay. Let me see how this gets explained, because that doesn't make sense to me, because she was knocked out for the last few days, so she would have had to put this on before she got knocked out. Wait, then did she get stabbed while leaving the house? Wait. Did she put the poison on the thing, then did she break into his house, put the poison on the thing, then as she was leaving, she got stabbed? Because that's the only way I see everything fitting. She sent the message to him to get him out of the house, that way she could break in, lace the place up, and I guess just wait for him to die? Okay, let me see. Yesterday at the hospital, we saw you with this bottle. And though the contents spilt during the course of our meeting, a small quantity remained. According to the defense's independent analysis, Mr. Sholmes' chemistry set, the liquid that was still in the bottle was identified as strychnine.
What? Strychnine? The very same poison that afflicted Mr. Shakespeare.
Miss Green, you broke into this man's lodgings for one reason, and one reason alone. To cover the end of the pipe that feeds the gas lamp in Mr. Shanspeare's room with poison.
Can this be?
You broke into my room to... It may seem incredible to the court, but from the remaining clues, there is only one logical conclusion we can reach. The person who had attempted to take Mr. Shanspeare's life with poison was you, Miss Olive Green. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh. So yeah, it was that. Was it? Yeah.
Order! Order! Counsel, are you seriously suggesting this woman put poison on the end of the gas pipe with intent to kill?
Yes, my lord. There is no other way to explain the facts.
But if Miss Green did indeed set this odious trap 6 days ago, and the victim had put his mouth through the pipe that very evening as expected, the attempted murder would have happened 6 days ago, surely.
Ah, That's a very good point.
Perhaps not, my lord.
I beg your pardon?
Huh?
There was a significant police presence in the area on that evening, on account of the incident on Briar Road. Local residents were being interviewed throughout the night as part of the ongoing inquiry. A circumspect criminal would have likely not chosen to carry out any wrongdoing at that time.
Lord Van Zeeks? And of course, the following morning, there was more activity at Mr. Shampier's address. More activity? Ah, yes. You mean his fellow lodger, Mr. Natsume, being arrested on suspicion of murder? Oh, he must have felt that he was gonna be caught up in something if he tried anything. That's right. And as the defense has already proposed, Mr. Shampier was meddling with the gas in the pipe for a very sinister reason himself. To cause the gas stove in Mr. Natsume's room to go out, thereby asphyxiating the occupant. But once Mr. Natsume had been arrested, his room was under constant surveillance by the police. In the circumstances, Mr. Shampier had no reason to blow air to the gas pipe.
His intended victim being in a prison cell. With the need to tamper the gas removed, the poison on the pipe lay dormant.
And then, 3 days ago now, the situation changed again.
Right.
Mr. Natsume's trial, which took place here at the Old Bailey, came to an end.
The trial in which the man stood accused of stabbing Miss Green in the back, but was duly acquitted.
That resulted in Mr. Natsume returning to his lodgings for the first time in 2 days. And that very night, his gas stove mysteriously went out, and Mr. Shampier was mysteriously poisoned. In conclusion, the poison that was present on the mouth of the gas pipe had been put there by the victim in the victim's room, not by the victim, some 4 days earlier. With that new understanding, it becomes clear that this letter was all part of a plan.
What's plan?
The court will recall that the note gave instructions to visit the Slug and Salad at 5 o'clock, and that the recipient should tell nobody else. The reason for those instructions are now clear.
To ensure that the lodger would not be at home at the stated time.
To make sure I wasn't home? Exactly. While you were out, Miss Green could safely slip into your room, knowing that she wouldn't be disturbed. You mean to say that letter was written by Miss Green? Yes. And in order to cover her tracks, she took it away with her when she left.
Just after she smeared poison over the mouth of the gas pipe in your room.
Order! Order! What do you have to say for yourself, witness?
Just who are you? Why did you try to kill me? Miss Green's motive should be obvious. It's all tied up with someone whose name we've heard several times already during the course of this trial.
So, that's what's behind all this.
You will share your apparent understanding with the court, please, counsel. Which person is behind this woman's motive?
Duncan Ross.
Take that!
Duncan Ross?
That's right. Before the defendant, Mr. Natsume, took up residence in the lodgings at Mr. Garrideb's, somebody else was renting the room. Mr. Duncan Ross.
I knew I heard the name somewhere else. It was all over the papers a month ago, when the man died in strange circumstances in the haunted lodgings.
That does ring a vague... Of course, yes, I remember now. The young man they claimed was strangled by the convict's curse or some such.
Sadly, my lord, it wasn't a curse of any kind, nor was it an accident. The man died as a result of Mr. Shamspeare blowing into the gas pipe and causing gas to leak into the room. It was murder, plain and simple. Well, what do you know? The world is so unfair. Curses, curious deaths, that's all people care about. If it's an interesting story, they want to know. It doesn't cross their minds that real people are involved. And once they're bored, just 1 month later, once the story has lost its appeal, everyone's forgotten him. You mean Duncan was... Mr. Ross was Miss Green's fiancé. Fiancé? You may not have known until now who Miss Green really is, Mr. Shamspeare. But she's known exactly who you are all along. Because you're her sworn enemy, the murderer who took the life of the man she was to marry. Miss Green, is it not the case that in order to exact revenge on Mr. Shamspeare, you smear poison over the end of the gas pipe?
This is all quite extraordinary. Am I correct in my understanding that you now accuse both parties, counsel? Each on different counts of murder?
Yes, my lord. That's correct.
Objection!
Inhaling so deeply it appears that my fledgling learned friend has taken a lungful of dubious gas that's causing his judgment to be clouded.
What?
Why would Mr. Shamspeare have wanted to kill these lodgers as you say? You have completely failed to provide a motive to substantiate your accusation against the man.
Yes, that's right, Mr. Reaper, my liege. I have been slighted. 'Tis lies, all lies. I deny every utterance. And you'll have to forgive me, Mr. Naruhodo, sir. But I don't intend to admit to anything either. Miss Green. I'm sure you'll think I'm being very rude, but I'm not going to be sent to the gallows for the likes of this scoundrel.
Objection!
But you broke into the man's room. If you didn't do it to smear poison on the pipe, what was your reason? I thought I'd have a look around. That's all. Yeah, you're gonna break in. You're gonna get the man out of the house, break into his room to look around? Sorry? You're right. I suspected him. So I thought perhaps I might find some evidence of something in his room. Evidence that it was him who took Duncan's life. Oh vilesse! Oh villainy! Oh tyranny! Oh rotundity of woman! But in any case, whenever I leave my room, I do turn the key in the lock. That old place is falling apart. The locks on the doors are no different. Duncan showed me once how to unlock the door, with some terps and a piece of wire. Oh awfulness! Oh artfulness! Oh tyranny! Oh profanity of woman!
We will consider your trespassing on future occasion, but for now, tell the court what you found, what evidence your search revealed.
Well, I spotted the note I had sent him lying on the floor. When I went to pick it up, I noticed something. One of the floorboards was loose, and underneath it, I discovered a secret hiding space.
Oh, she found that. Crud.
Yes, we also discovered that hiding place. Inside, we found a newspaper cutting, a photograph, and an empty tin box. Ah, yes. Well, the thing is, when I found it, the box wasn't empty. What? There was something in it? Yes. This rather nice key.
What are you doing with that? What the...
Every ounce of color has drained from his face.
Give it here! Give it to me now! It's mine! I inherited it! What was that, witness? What did you just say? You inherited it?
No, What's all this about? He inherited that key? It was obviously important to you, since you'd gone to such lengths to hide it. So I took it. I don't know what it's for, but you took something precious from me. So I took something precious from you. So whatever it means if you can't open something now, I don't care.
Give it back this minute! Give it to me!
Calm yourself, witness.
So, Mr. Shamsbury has tried, and in one case succeeded, to take the life of 2 lodgers now. Yes, his motive for doing so is the key to everything that's happened. It's true that there appears to be no motive to support the accusation against Mr. Shamsbury at first, but considering everything we now know, I think there is actually something that could explain it.
What?
I need to recall every piece of evidence at our disposal, everything we've seen and heard, because I'm sure that I just caught a glimpse of the link that runs through all these events.
In that case, counsel, I must demand that you present evidence to the court in support of your claim. What is it that you say can explain the motivation for Mr. Shamsbury's alleged crimes?
And yes, this is something I do actually remember. As you recall, in the stuff we found related to Selden, we saw that his final moments were witnessed by his cellmate. And his fellow cellmate alerted the medical staff. Considering the fact that he just said he inherited it, there's a good chance that Shamsbury is Selden's cellmate, and I guess inherited that key before he died.
Take that!
That's an official police report, is it not?
The Selden file?
I thought this was Scotland for a second.
How did you get a hold of that?
Selden. The now sadly deceased Mr. Ross and the defendant Mr. Natsume have only one thing linking them. The fact that they had lodgings in the same room.
Well, yes, we know this, certainly.
A room that was formerly occupied by Selden. Until, that is, he was arrested by Scotland Yard for his involvement in multiple burglaries.
I see.
And it so happens that the convict Selden left behind one very substantial mystery when he died.
The some £1,000 worth of loot that he stole, which as yet remains to be found.
Yes, of course. It's coming back to me now. It's written in his file here.
So that key leads to his treasure.
£1,000 lost en route to hell, was how the papers summed it up.
And it seems that one particular fellow inmate was with the convict in his final moments. It's not hard to imagine Selden entrusting that inmate with his closely guarded secret. The location of the stolen loot, and perhaps a key to unlock whatever container the valuables were in. You mean this key is...
Mr. Shamsbury, it was you, wasn't it?
You were at the capital offender's side when he died, were you not? What are you talking about? 'Tis a false charge, I tell you. A false charge.
The name of the inmate who was with Selden at his death isn't noted in this file. But a simple telegram to the prison where he died would quickly tell us how false this charge really is.
But even if it's true, why would the man be so intent on killing every subsequent occupant of the convict's lodgings?
There's only one explanation for that, my lord. It was in that very room that Selden hid his loot.
So, it all comes out.
Yes, and having established that, all of Mr. Shamspeare's subsequent actions start to make sense.
When he was let out of prison following Selden's death, he made immediately for Mr. Garridup's lodgings in the hope of renting Selden's old room. However, the retired army man was unable to offer him the accommodation of his choice.
Because Selden's own room had been already let to by somebody else, Mr. Duncan Ross. Which is
why Mr. Shamspeare subsequently devised his gas-based plot to kill the occupant of the room. And when he was successful, he presumably intended to inquire about switching into the newly vacant room.
However, a certain jittery someone had beaten him to it.
Mr. Suzuki Natsume, the defendant of this case, no less.
So, you decided to use this ploy with the gas again, didn't you, Mr. Shamspeare? This time to oust Mr. Natsume. All for one simple and avaricious reason. To get your hands on the 1,000 pounds of loot left behind that dead To get the 1,000 pounds of loot left behind by the dead convict. But you, Oh, that's okay.
Looks like I'm gonna snuff it.
Oh,
listen, I want you to have me loot. Anything to stop the coppers getting their mitts on it. It's in the room where I was lodging when they got me. There, this is the key to it. Take it. Always stay one step ahead, mate. See you in hell, I guess. Shamspeare.
it's mine. What did you just say? It's mine. That loot is mine. Mr. Shamspeare? It's all lies. I don't accept any of it. Why should I? After all, you don't have a shred of evidence. You can't prove I killed that fellow. Forsooth, I'm the victim here, remember? Isn't that right, ladies and gentlemen? If I don't admit to it, there's nothing you can do. You can't arrest me. For the time being, anyway. Verily, you can't arrest the victim, can you? Isn't that right, ladies and gentlemen? I'm so close. I just need a few more hours. I swore to myself that I'd get my hands on it, and I can almost taste it now. Do you really think I just give up? There's no question in my mind now. This man is guilty through and through. But he seems so utterly intoxicated by the idea of that loot. I'm afraid that no matter how hard you press him, he'll never admit to what he's done, Mr. Naruhodo. There is a way. Pardon? There's one way I can finish him. No. He's already committed some of the most heinous crimes to get his hands on that loot. Which means all we need to do is find it first.
A fine plan. Were it not for the fact that the police thoroughly searched the room following the death of Mr. Ross. If it's there at all, it must be very well hidden indeed.
Without conclusive evidence, I certainly cannot rule.
If only there was some way we can find the convict's loot quickly.
There is actually a way. This is the final piece in this complex puzzle.
But I think we might have it in our possession already. Or rather, I think we may have something that can help us find where that loot is hidden.
My lord? Yes, counsel?
The defense would like to make a proposal about how to find the late convict's hidden loot. I believe we are already in possession of something that could give us a clue as to its whereabouts.
It's our last chance, so it has to be worth a gamble.
Besides, we've used the same technique once already, and it definitely paid off then.
Very well then, counsel. Let the court hear your idea. What do you propose we can use in order to locate the hiding place of the deceased convict's haul?
Well, it's rather simple when you think about it. It's the one thing we can't explain. Why the heck did he put all his handprints on the wall? That doesn't make sense. Or does it?
Take that!
If I'm not mistaken, those are Mr. Shamspeare's handprints on the wall of his lodgings.
That's right, my lord. Exposed as a result of the defense's independent investigation of the scene. Based on a wonderful new discovery in the field of forensic science by the great detective, Mr. Sholmes. What the? Yeah? That was weird. This controller is not... Yeah, it's off? It didn't give me any, like, low battery messages or whatever. Whatever. Oh good, these are fully charged. Okay. Sorry about that. It's weird. I thought this was like... No, I guess I have to charge it. Whatever. Based on a wonderful new discovery in the field of forensic science by the great detective, Mr. Sholmes. A great detective? Is that some kind of joke? Do you really think I'm going to be daunted by a man with such a ridiculous title? I should think the great bard ought to recognize such a title when he hears one, Mr. Shamspeare. Perhaps we should compete for the honor of most ridiculous title. Ah! 'Tis Sherlock Sholmes himself!
What are you doing here, great detective? Your usual haunts are filthy backstreets of the capital, are they not?
Ah, Mr. Reaper, it's been too long, and I see your complexion has worsened since we last met. Mr. Sholmes? He does know Lord Van Zeeks then. Well enough to say something like that in any case.
Mr. Sholmes, though you may be heralded as a great detective by the population at large, that does not give you the right to come and go in my courtroom as you see fit.
If I may, my lord, Mr. Sholmes' newly developed scientific method has helped us uncover the vital clues in this case already.
Clues, you say?
I call them skin prints, my lord. My method identifies every location touched by an individual under scrutiny. It's the method by which we were able to ascertain this gentleman's gas pipe activities. You need only a small sample of something the individual has previously touched to make an indicate a solution. In your case, sir, I used the teacup you have been holding. Elementary. So now, Mr. Naruhodo. Ah, yes. What am I to use as a sample to make the indicator solution this time? Thank you for offering to help, Mr. Sholmes. When the convict was arrested, he was living in what is now Soseki-san's room. We need a sample to locate Selden's loot hidden in his old room. What form will the sample take? Okay, so this is actually a little bit hard to do, since we don't actually have the evidence. Let's present a person, and you'll see why. We will need something of Selden's in order to create the indicator solution to find his loot, and something the convict owned happens to be in the possession of somebody listed in the court record. Upon my word, Mr. Naruto, your powers of reasoning appear to be on the up. So, which particular person do you have in mind? From whom can we obtain the possession of the late convict Selden to create the indicator solution? Easy. Olive Green. She has his key around her neck. Miss Green. Ah, me? What do you want with me? The key around your neck, if you please. Sorry? That key belonged to Selden. There will be remnants of secretions from the man's skin on its surface that we can use. Very true. That is the sample we need. Using it, we can create the indicator solution required for Mr. Sholmes' skin print seeker, and find out exactly what Selden touched in the room that he used to rent. Mr. Shakespeare, as one great to another, I assure you, if the late convict's haul is hidden somewhere in his former lodgings, I shall uncover it in no more than 30 minutes. So, Mr. Shakespeare, the truth is well within our grasp now, and as such, you will never get your hands on Selden's stolen wealth. In that case, I'll gladly let Mr. Sholmes have this key. No! Give the key to me! The detective shan't have it! It's over, Mr. Shakespeare. No! No! You're out of options now. There's only one thing left for you to do. Admit your guilt. Woe. Oh, shameful spear! Despair! Be thy name! I never intended to kill the man. I just wanted to drive him out of the room. That's all. So, you have time to find the convict's haul of stolen goods. Yet, after you killed the young man, you still didn't move into the room. I asked the landlord, of course. I pleaded with him, but he refused. Why? I was 3 months behind with the rent, for one thing. Mr. Gerda really has had a lot to put up with. And he had the gas repair work done immediately afterwards, putting the room out of action for a while. And then this Japanese man swooped in at just the right moment to sign the new lease. Poor Mr. Natsume. What unfortunate timing. Then, 5 days ago, after the incident on Wire Road when the Japanese fellow got himself arrested, I thought I'd finally have my chance. But it wasn't to be. No. The scene was sealed off and guarded by the police night and day. And, if I remember rightly, Mr. Sholmes spent the whole day in there reading books. I couldn't even enter the room, let alone search for the loot. Which is why, on the day Mr. Natsume was acquitted and returned to his room, you once again tried your trick of blowing air into the gas pipe that feeds the stove in his room. Unbeknownst to you, however, that action would lead you into a deadly trap. William Shakespeare. How does it go? To be or not to be? That is the question.
From Shakespeare's Hamlet, Act 3, Scene 1.
Well, let me tell you. In your case, it's not to be. That is the answer. You deserve to die for what you've done. At first, I really did think it was just a terrible accident. I'll never forget our conversation the night before Duncan died.
The gas supply in my new lodgings are a complete disaster, you know, Olive.
The gas supply?
Yes, the stove always seems to go out in the middle of the night for some reason. That's no joke. They say it's the convict's gas.
Oh, Duncan, please, don't stay there. I don't care how cheap it is.
Alright then, if it's that important to you, I'll start looking for a new place.
There are spare rooms at my house. Why don't you leave that horrible room tonight?
No, I'd better not. We'd said we'd wait until we'd graduated before we told our parents, remember?
But that was the last time we ever spoke. That very night he fell victim to the gas. If only I'd known what was going to happen, I'd have insisted he'd left that horrible room that instant. But instead, all I've been left with is bitter regret. I stopped going to school, but something kept drawing me back to the house on Briar Road. I saw a stooped Eastern-looking man with a mustache coming out of the house one day when I was there. He walked up to Grubb's grubbery for some food, so I followed him, and sat myself down next to him. He had some watery-looking soup and started to pick a quarrel with the publican.
The place is cursed, I tell you! Cursed! The ghost of the convict who used to live there is trying to suffocate me! I wake up in the middle of the night, freezing to death, because the stove has gone out. The room is full of gas, and I can hardly breathe. But the pipes have been checked. No problem there. It's like I'm the problem. That's what they're thinking.
But how could that be? Duncan was gone, and now this man had almost suffered the same fate. Could it really be a curse? Then I remembered. A rumor I'd heard about how the gas companies go around investigating the gas installations.
A rumor? Ah, you mean...
Yes. Everybody's heard the stories, it seems, about how they go around checking the pipes.
How anything connected to the gas can be extinguished by blowing air into the pipework.
That's when it started. A little flicker of doubt in the back of my mind that just wouldn't go away. Was it really an accident, though? Once I'd had the idea, it wouldn't leave me alone. It plagued me day and night. So, I bought this at one of the black markets in the East End.
Black market?
I'd never been. I just heard people talk about them. And you really can buy anything you can think of there. In some ways, being able to get my hands on this so easily made me even more determined. I had to find out one way or another. Was Duncan's death an accident? Or was it murder?
Yeah? You could have gotten some poor gas man killed. And your chosen method for establishing the truth was simple, but highly effective. Smear poison on the gas pipe you suspected the man of tampering with, and wait.
If Mr. Shamptree was innocent, nothing would come of what you'd done. But if he was guilty, he would pay for his crimes dearly. I found out the name of the man I suspected. William Shakespeare. And then I wrote him in this little note. I have information regarding the death of Duncan Ross. Come to the Slug and Salad on Briar Road at 5 p.m. on the 17th. Don't tell anyone else about this letter or the meeting. It is a matter of utmost importance. If he'd done it, I knew that would worry him enough, so he'd be sure to go. No, I'm pretty sure if anyone got a letter, well, if saying who's Duncan Ross or whatever, I guess that's true. Never mind then. So, I waited to see if it worked.
And of course, Mr. Shakespeare followed the instructions to the letter.
I worked out where the gas pipe was straight away. So I smeared a good amount of the poison I'd bought all around the mouth of the pipe. All the time praying that the devil's work wouldn't be done, and that it was all just some wild fantasy. Actually, no. All the time praying that the devil's work would be done, and the culprit would get his just desserts.
"3 days ago,
Sorry.
when you first stood in the dock before me, this whole affair seemed relatively straightforward."
Yes, my lord.
I certainly never imagined the depths of the depravity that we would subsequently find lurking behind the scenes.
It has been a long road, my Nipponese friend.
Yes.
And one I certainly didn't envisage walking with you.
Nevertheless, together we have reached the light at the end of the tunnel, as it were. Miss Green,
Yes, my lord.
you will henceforth be stripped of your freedom, as punishment for the attempted murder of Mr. William Shakespeare.
Yes, I know.
And you, Mr. Shakespeare, you will be tried for the murder of Duncan Ross in cold blood, and the subsequent attempted murder of Mr. Suzuki Natsume here present.
Mr. Naruhodo?
Yes?
Yesterday, at the hospital, when you and your friends stopped me from ending your life by drinking what was left in the poison bottle, I wasn't myself. I can't even really remember what was going on through my mind. To be or not to be, I suppose. That's a question that's so hard to answer, it seems. Well, personally, I'm glad of your being here, Miss Green. Oh, and I'd like to believe that it's a blessing Mr. Shakespeare didn't die when he ingested the poison. For your sake, at the very least. Because of you, I chose life, not death. And now you've made the truth come out at last. Really, I can't thank you enough. Oh, Miss Green.
Mr. Suzuki Natsume,
Yes, my lord?
the court declares that you are exonerated from all blame in this matter. Accordingly, I would call upon the ladies and gentlemen of the jury to present a verdict of not guilty.
We are in full agreement, my lord.
In that case, I hereby declare the defendant not guilty. That was a good case. Court is adjourned.
"23rd of February, 3:24 p.m. The Old Bailey Defendant's Antechamber." Oh, yes, yes, at last! Divine justice duly done! Divine justice? My dear fellow, if there were any divine justice in this world, you would shave that mustache. No, this has nothing to do with my mustache. Some say it's the luxuriant mustache as a sign of physical prowess, Mr. Sholmes. Locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. Once again, you've saved me from doom. I'm very happy to have been of help, Mr. Natsume. Congratulations on your acquittal. You're second in almost as many days. I was first acquainted with and gained affection for English literature while in our great homeland empire. And then, by a twist of fate, I was brought to the land that bore fruit of that literature. Only, the city of bricks and mortar became my prison. Try as I might, I never found my feet here. In the end, I confined myself to my room and lived life through friendly old books. You've had such a difficult time, haven't you? Ah, but a week ago now, I dragged you into that dark and dingy room of yours, did I not? You did, and I've seen more of life in this week than in all my years to date. And for the first time, I feel I've begun to see the true face of the English that's so far been hiding from me behind the wall of fog. My dear fellow, there is nothing so special about the true face of England, the English as you put it. Wheresoever one goes in the world, human are human. There are few genuine differences. Yes, I think you're right. I've finally started to see that, and I've come to understand something. I've worked out why I was attracted to English literature in the first place. It made me see that whatever our nationality, we humans all have the same hopes and fears. We're all just doing our best to live. Well said. I've come to feel the same way. I've made a decision too. I'm going to cut short my study tour here and return to Japan. What? Just when we become friends here in England? What a terrible shame. Oh, I know. That does tug at my heartstrings. It really does. But I decided I'd like to take everything I've learned here in Great Britain and write something of my own. A novel of sorts, I suppose. Oh my! So you'll be creating your own literature, Mr. Natsume? How wonderful. Oh, well, no, I wouldn't presume to call it literature. Why not? When that is precisely what the definition, Mr. Mustache. I suppose you're right. Yes, it will, in a way, be literature. But as of now, all I know is that I'd like to try my hand at writing. I have no delusions of grandeur. I, for one, would love to read your work. Well, all things considered, it may be for the best. After all, you have once again emerged victorious from a battle with a reaper. Ah, that's very true. And there is no salvation for a Persian in the dock when the reaper is the prosecutor. The desire to return post-haste to the perceived safety of your homeland is one I quite understand. My goodness, yes. Faced with such a terrifying prospect, nobody would consider that cowardly, I'm quite sure. But that's not why I'm leaving. I mean it! And that was the case we found ourselves embroiled in 6 months ago now. Suseki-san did indeed return to Japan and submitted a report about both cases to the government. It was on reading that report that Professor Mikotoba was prompted to visit the scholar, and barely any time later, Susato-san was given the news that she must return to Japan as well, on the back of a telegram stating falsely that her father had fallen gravely ill. The only possible explanation that comes to mind is what happened after the trial on the following day. The day that we uncovered the loot hidden by the now deceased convict in his former lodgings. We're not done yet. Oh, well done, Mr. Sholmes. How simply marvelous of you. To uncover the secret hiding place in just one day. Was it supposed to take less than 30 minutes? As I believe I told you, my dear fellows, skin prints are extremely useful in such situations. Wouldn't you agree, Gregson?
Gregsy's been happily munching in agreement this whole time, you know, Hurley.
Happily? I think perhaps humorlessly might be closer to the truth. So, it transpires that the man fashioned a hiding place in the ceiling. And what's in it? What exactly is the loot? Let us look, then, if you're ready. Let's examine the great burglar's hole. What is that? It looks to be some sort of neckband or collar. Is that blood on it? Excuse me? A collar? It's huge though.
And look at all the gemstones set in it. I can see why it was claimed to be worth 1,000 pounds. Perhaps I could use it as a belt.
Oh, have you noticed on the inside of there? There are some dark stains. You don't think there could be blood, do you? I mean, there's quite a lot of it. Yeah, why do we have this music? Matter of fact, no. There. This would be a lot better if there weren't music, because it's like a whole mysterious scene or whatever.
On second thoughts, perhaps I won't have it as a belt.
Then, of course, there's this emblem here. A large letter B and a small crown. What does it signify, do you think?
Oh, I hadn't noticed that.
Wait. I feel as though I've seen that emblem somewhere before, you know? Where could it have been? Is there music here, or... Yeah? This sounds better without... Whatever. That's enough for that, I think. What? What's the matter with Mr. Sholmes? All the color has drained from his face. Well, Inspector, I believe you ought to be taking this, oughtn't you? It could be valuable evidence after all. It must be kept safely under lock and key.
Yes. Grab your hands off that, you lot, and hand it over, now.
I'd never seen a collar that large before, and all those jewels certainly looked to be extremely valuable. But that's not what stood out the most to me, at least, not once I'd noticed it. Those dark marks on the inside of the collar, those stains, could they really have been blood?
Well, that was a funny case, wasn't it? But it's all buttoned up now.
And you look very pleased, Iris. Let me turn back on the music. I think everything should be fine. You're good.
I am, because I was starting to wonder what I could use as the basis of this month's story in the magazine. But thought this case will be perfect. It's been so fascinating.
You're talking about the latest installment of the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, I presume?
The mystery of the knife in the mist, and the mustached man and the convict's curse, perhaps. I can make a 2-part story.
Oh, I can't wait. A word please, Iris.
Yes? What is it, Hurley?
I'm sorry, but you can't write about this case. It's out of the question.
What? Why not? It's a great case.
Then I shall have to insist that you limit yourself to the first of your 2 titles. The second must never be written. Is that clear?
Yes.
Trying to cover up something,
And so
Sean?
it was that the second of Souseki-san's cases became buried in obscurity.
Random voice acting, okay.
Now, looking back, I feel I understand. I can see why Mr. Sholmes forbade Iris from publishing the story. It would take a little longer before I saw the link between everything that had happened and would happen. For it wasn't until 2 months after the arrival of Susato-san's letter that events began to unfurl again. With an incident that took place at the very heart of the eagerly awaited Great Exhibition of London.
That was case 2. Alright. Overall, I think it was a pretty good case. I mean, it kind of shares the same themes, I guess, it shares the same themes of I guess relationships and such that the last one had, because the Clouded Kokoro had like the relationship between the beat cop or whatever, and then you had with Mr. Garrett and some, and now you have the relationship between the broken relationship between Duncan and Olive, and you also have the I guess partner or whatever relationship of Selden and well, I wouldn't say partner relationship, but you have the idea of trust between Selden and Shakespeare. So yeah, I do like that. Overall, though, I think this was a nice, I guess, addition to the normal Clouded Kokoro. I do wonder how it would be like playing these 2 cases back to back. However, just to see the full story unfold, as it were. I don't know. Anyways, all right. Anyways, next time we're gonna play The Return of The Great Departed Soul. And I do want to preface this. I'm going to say this again if I remember. I hope I remember when we start this episode. But right now, we are getting into the meat of the main story, the central plot thread or whatever of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Everything before that, the first game was just the build-up. These past 2 cases were just reminding the player of what went down and building it up even more. It will be this case that will take all that build-up and use it as a starting point, a springboard to the events that will take place for the rest of the game. All the small little hints and pieces we may or may not have noticed in the previous episodes all come to fruition here. This, my people, is the climax. Well, not the climax, but this is the inciting incident. Not even that. Whatever. I don't know. Anyways, that all starts next time. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all then.